The hospital lobby was calm that morning, too calm. The soft hum of fluorescent lights, the quiet shuffle of nurses, the gentle tapping of a receptionist's keyboard, it all blended into a soothing, almost sleepy rhythm. Then, without warning, the automatic doors hissed open. Heads turned, and there, standing tall on the polished white tile, was a massive German shepherd, panting hard, its fur matted with dirt-dried blood and leaves. It was a shocking sight, completely out of place in the sterile calm of a hospital. But that wasn't what made the room freeze. Clinging to the dog's back arms tightly wrapped around its neck was a little girl no more than 6 years old. Her bare feet dangled her forehead, bleeding her blonde hair tangled with twigs and dirt. Her lips were pale, her eyes barely open. The dog took one more step forward. Silence fell like a curtain. Time stood still. Then, so faint it was almost missed, the child whispered one word that shattered the quiet: help. And just like that, the entire hospital erupted into action. For a moment, no one moved. Doctors, nurses, patients all stood frozen in disbelief. Then the silence broke. A nurse shouted for a stretcher. A doctor dropped his clipboard and sprinted toward the girl. The German shepherd, sensing the urgency, lowered itself to the ground, with surprising gentleness, allowing the girl to slide down into waiting arms. She's barely conscious. One nurse gasped, checking the child's pulse. The girl whimpered again, her tiny hand gripping the dog's fur before slipping away. Her breathing was shallow, blood trickled down her temple. Her body trembled with exhaustion. Without a word, the dog stood up and followed the stretcher, its paws padding softly beside the wheels. People in the waiting room whispered prayers. Some cried. Some just stared at the heroic dog that had walked through fire, possibly miles of it, to carry this child to safety. As the trauma room doors swung open, the dog stopped just short of crossing the line. It sat, ears-perked eyes locked on the little girl disappearing into the hallway. It didn't bark. It didn't whine. It just waited, watching, guarding. One older nurse wiped her eyes and whispered, "That dog didn't just save her life. He gave us all a reason to believe again." And in that moment, amidst all the chaos, something beautiful happened. Hope walked in on 4 legs. Inside the trauma room, the calm of the hospital shattered. We've got a 6-year-old female head trauma, signs of dehydration as possible internal bleeding. A doctor called out as the stretcher burst through the double doors. Nurses scrambled IV bags, unhooked gloves, snapped on monitors, beeped rapidly. A swirl of scrubs and urgency engulfed the tiny body on the gurney. Emily's face was pale, lips cracked. Her pulse was weak, her breathing shallow, her pressures dropping. 80/50. Get me a CT scan. Now we need to intubate if she doesn't stabilize in 30 seconds. Meanwhile, just outside the trauma bay, the German shepherd buddy sat, statue still, his eyes locked on the narrow window in the door. Every shout, every beep, every panicked movement inside made his ears twitch, his body tense. But he didn't move. He just waited. Like he understood. Inside, Emily's vitals dropped again. Flatline. One long beep. The room froze. Clear. Her little body jumped on the table. Again, clear. A second jolt. The monitor stuttered. Then, a heartbeat. Weak, but there. The entire room let out a breath none of them realized they were holding. One nurse broke into tears. "She's stabilizing," the doctor finally said, voice trembling with relief. Outside the door, Buddy stood up and let out a single soft bark, not alarm, but acknowledgement. He knew. The girl he carried through the woods was still alive. And for the first time that day, the hospital wasn't filled with fear. It was filled with fight faith and the quiet thump of a dog's tail against the floor. Inside, room 204, the little girl, Emily Parker, just 6 years old, lay beneath a thin blanket, her chest rising slowly rhythmically. The tubes and machines still hummed, but her color had returned. Her tiny hand twitched. At her feet, curled into a silent sentinel, Buddy lay motionless, his head resting on his paws. His golden brown eyes never left her face. Then, the doors flew open. A woman burst into the room, her face pale clothes disheveled and tears streaking down her cheeks. "Emily!" she cried, her voice breaking. It was Lisa Parker, Emily's mother. A nurse gently caught her arm and whispered, "She's stable." She's safe now. Lisa dropped to her knees beside the bed, clutching her daughter's tiny fingers. I thought I lost you. She sobbed, kissing Emily's hand again and again. Then she noticed him. Buddy? She gasped. That's my father's dog. That's Buddy. Her voice broke into a whisper. He's been gone for over a year. A nurse nodded. He brought her here, carried her on his back. He never left her side. Lisa reached out trembling. Buddy looked up, eyes glassy but calm, and leaned into her hand as if saying, I did my duty. Emily stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, lips dry and barely audible. She whispered, Buddy, you came back. Buddy let out a soft, low whine. His tail thumped once. The room filled with emotion. Doctors, nurses, even security guards standing by the door wiped away tears. In that moment, no one spoke, because no words were needed, just the steady beep of a heart monitor, and the quiet, unshakable bond between a little girl and the dog who had once belonged to her grandfather. By sunrise the next day, news of what happened at Riverbend General Hospital had spread like wildfire. Local reporters stood outside room 204, whispering into microphones while camera crews tiptoed down the hallway, hoping to catch a glimpse of the mysterious dog who saved a child's life. Inside, Emily lay resting peacefully. Her cheeks now held color, her breathing steady. Buddy never moved far. When doctors came in to check her vitals, he'd lift his head, watch closely, then relax again once he saw she wasn't in danger. The hospital allowed him to stay not as a patient, but as a guardian. By that afternoon, flowers, dog treats, and handwritten cards flooded the nurse's station. One child wrote, "Thank you, Buddy, for being a real superhero." Another note simply read, "You carried hope on your back." Even strangers came by, war veterans, retired, police officers, families with children, to offer thanks. Some knelt just to pet Buddy's head, others wiped tears before they could speak. But Buddy didn't care about the attention. He only cared about the girl. When the local news aired the footage, Emily weak but smiling, petting Buddy's head, the phones at the hospital lit up. Offers to adopt him, sponsor his care, even suggestions to build a statue in the town square began pouring in. But Lisa knew the truth. Buddy isn't just a hero, she told the camera's voice trembling. He's family. He's the last piece of my father left in this world, and now he's the reason my daughter is alive. And across the town, across the state, even across the country, hearts were moved by the silent devotion of one aging dog, and the life he refused to let go. That night, as the stars blanketed the quiet town of Riverbend, room 204 was bathed in a soft golden glow. Emily was finally asleep, her tiny chest rising and falling in a peaceful rhythm. Her mother, Lisa, sat by her bedside, hand gently resting on her daughter's. The chaos had faded. The machines no longer screamed. There was only stillness, and one faithful heartbeat at the foot of the bed. Buddy, he didn't ask for thanks. He didn't seek recognition. He didn't wear a cape or stand on 2 feet. But when it mattered most, he carried hope, courage, and a life on his back, and he never once let go. Lisa wiped her eyes and looked at him, her voice barely above a whisper. You came back when no one else could have. You remembered her. You protected her like Dad would have. Buddy opened one eye, thumped his tail softly, and leaned his head against the edge of the bed. Outside the hospital was quiet again. But inside, something had changed, not just in one room or one family, but in every person who had witnessed that miracle. Doctors spoke of it in the break room. Nurses shared it with their children. And seniors in town wept softly as they watched the news. Because deep down, everyone knew what Buddy reminded them: love doesn't fade, loyalty doesn't forget. And sometimes, angels have 4 legs and muddy fur. As Lisa turned out the light and kissed her daughter goodnight, Buddy remained in his spot, eyes open just enough to watch the door. Not just a guard dog, not just a hero, a symbol of something timeless, the kind of love that never leaves. The story of Buddy, the old dog who carried an injured little girl to the hospital, is not only a miracle, but also a profound reminder of the unconditional love, loyalty, and protective instincts of the most seemingly quiet creatures. In a busy and chaotic world, we often forget that true love needs no words, no conditions. It is shown by actions, by perseverance, and sometimes by a tired step that refuses to stop. Buddy not only saved a life, but also inspired faith and goodness, touching the hearts of an entire community. This story teaches us that love, once it comes from the heart, can overcome all boundaries, all difficulties, and even save a life.